I'm going to share my thoughts on change in the context of education, in the context of work that I have done in personal capacity as well as professional, both in academic and my corporate association as well. So if we look at, to understand the process of change, and it's important to understand the context for change. We know that at different points of time in life, there have been multiple industrial revolutions that have spurred the growth, both at the social as well as economic level. And in this time, the biggest digital transformation is going to usher in the next wave of growth. The boundaries between physical world and the digital world are fading away. And we've seen multiple innovations which are happening, and they're leading to entrepreneurship of a very different kind. You do not need conventional ways of having capital. We've seen that in the case of hotel aggregators. We have seen companies like Zomato, Flipkart, who've become billion-dollar enterprises in a span of less than 3 to 5 years, which was never a possibility in previous decades. If we look at this context of change, you will find that by 2050, 69% of the population in the world is going to move to urban areas. While as in India, that population will be about 40%. To understand the magnitude of that change, it would mean that a new Mumbai or Chicago is being set up in India on an annual basis. Imagine the power of this urbanization that's going to happen, the facilities that would be required, and the kind of innovation and entrepreneurship that would be required to cope up with this massive change that is going to be happening. Also, because of the convergence of technologies and multiple disciplines, you'll see about 600 million new jobs that will be created over the next 10 years. And the aspect to understand is that more than 70% of these jobs have not even been created as yet. So if you look at the digital way of doing business, people are developing apps, and more than 70% of these apps are being hosted on cloud. So cloud and mobility are changing the face of business like never before. Also, we are seeing that almost 1 million people will be victims of cybercrime, and along with that offers new opportunities for investment, for innovation, and for newer opportunities. So this is, while this change is happening, we also need to understand that what's happening to the education system and what kind of skill sets and competencies are being produced. So 38% of the worldwide, 38% of the jobs were not filled last year because the right kind of talent was not available. Most of the CEOs who are hiring feel that the talent does not have the multiple level of skills that are required to do those jobs effectively. And we need to change. We need to relook at how we are in our education system, what kind of changes need to be implemented. If we need to change, we need to think about the 21st century skills. Because every employer or every successful entrepreneur requires the skill sets of critical thinking, teamwork, collaboration, problem solving, attention to detail, and experimentation. We need to rethink the way we learn and we teach in the classroom. So there is this context of change not only happening at an individual level, but also this context of change, this change has to be embraced by the institutions, by the faculty, and the students. We need to think about collaboration in multiple ways. Today, just learning from books or repeating the same experiments is not enough, because to survive in a world where resources are going to be scarce, water, energy, environment are going to be the biggest challenges. So we as students have a huge responsibility, or institutions have a huge responsibility, that what kind of a world are we going to leave for the future generations? Can our education system facilitate thought processes that leads to problem solving? Otherwise, this world will not be livable in the years to come. I'm going to share two stories of change that was precipitated by the collaborative efforts of teachers and students. The first case is that of Bijal Damini. She is an ordinary teacher, but with extraordinary passion, who lives in Rajkot in Gujarat. And she is a teacher who teaches entrepreneurship in SN Kasagra School, which is one of the largest private schools in Gujarat. She had a problem before her. She had some disengaged students who had to be engaged in meaningful manner, and she was given the task of teaching them entrepreneurship. So one way of teaching entrepreneurship was to take them through the concepts and the theory and give them some exercises to do. She took it as a challenge, and what she did was, she worked with the students. They sourced some products from the marketplace, made some minor modifications in those products. She taught her children how to create websites, and those products were hosted on the website, and online bazaars were organized. Also, the students invited the communities to sell those products once in a year, and gradually, over a few years, she raised $100,000, and out of which, about $70,000 were donated to fund the education for underprivileged girls. So here is a scenario where a teacher she did not teach entrepreneurship the conventional manner, but she taught them how to source the products, how to market them, how to price them, how to use technology in a meaningful manner and drive learning and also contribute to community development. So it's a fine example of students and teachers collaborating and creating amazing instances of learning that would be helpful to them in later life. The second case in point is again an ordinary teacher, and this teacher's name is Rajat Singh Desale. He's an expert educator who has specialized in the area of teaching with technology. And what he did was, it's a case of a government school where typically, there are many a times challenges of power not being there, devices not being there, and also access to internet is also a challenge very often. So what he did was, he worked with these students who would generally read from textbooks. He looked at that if he's teaching poems or a particular lesson, he would be limited by what is available in a book. So rather than just being restricted to the contents of the book, he looked at the websites and looked at additional materials and created QR codes for every theme. And for every theme that was covered in the book, those QR codes were pasted, which were taken back at home by the students. And when they would read from the book, they would use a phone, scan the QR code, and they would have access to materials to which the students would never have access to. And because of this intervention, the state government embraced this particular innovation. And today, 185,000 students in Maharashtra have better learning experiences because of the effort of this one single teacher. He's now talking to multiple state governments to expand the horizons of learning by using technology in multiple ways. And likewise, there are so many other teachers. There are beautiful examples of a teacher who is based out of Guwahati, who is leading a movement on saving rhinoceros and is connecting with communities, students and teachers across the world and sharing best practices and identifying common challenges. So today, you're not just confined to the four walls of a classroom or a school, But through the innovations of the leadership and teachers, you can bring in global ideas of innovation in the classroom. So if you want to study about geography or culture, you need not just browse the internet or read from the books, but you could have a live session, learn about the Roman Empire with a teacher in Rome who is walking you through the ruins of Colosseum. And that's happening. You could be going to Antarctica with missions, sitting in your classroom, with Skype sessions that you could have with them. You could be visiting NASA scientists, and the possibilities are endless. So in all of this, in all our experiences with the teachers, there are certain common elements that precipitated this change of heart. So one is passion for making an impact. I think in life, having a higher purpose is extremely important. Whenever we talk about change, there's always this inertia of habit. And to overcome that inertia, there has to be a higher motivating force that needs to be there, which constantly propels you to move forward. Also, there is a need to go beyond self-gratification. And there are these two aspects that I would like to share with you. There are two things that I would like to highlight here. One is courage, and the other is competence. So I think this is one of the fundamental competencies that we need to imbibe, and that is of courage. There are always situations, and I can share from my personal experiences, that there are always limitations, and whenever you pick up a career or you want to pursue your dreams, and there could be stereotypes, there could be resistance from the family, there could be, as an earlier speaker also shared, that people will have opinions about things that one does. But you have to stand tall, and you have to believe in yourself and pursue your passion. I could share from a personal experience that I wanted to study. I had done 2 masters, and still I wanted to study further. But there was a family pressure to get settled. But I didn't leave my dreams. After I got married, I quit my full-time job to pursue and earn a fellowship, and pursued my PhD at IIT Delhi. And I wrote my thesis, and I enjoyed academics, and I wanted to write books, and I wanted my books to be published globally. And there was this passion, but then where do you get started? How do you get your first paper published? And I found mentors, I found support, and despite all the difficult challenges of getting your work internationally published, there were the comments from reviewers are sometimes very severe. You feel hurt because those remarks are not very kind, but you cannot give up, and I never gave up. My first publication was in an international journal from Sage, and I could never believe that it got published on entrepreneurship. That was Journal of Entrepreneurship from Sage, and there was no looking back ever since. There were challenges. When my son was born, I was writing my thesis. When my son was about 2.5 years old, I got the fellowship from United Nations University at Tokyo, and there was resistance that how can you leave your son for a year to pursue your research dreams? But then I had support from the family, and I followed my heart, and there was no looking back ever since. There have been over 12 to 14 years of academic career. There were, I authored about 12 books that were published from New York, from Springer, from Oxford Press, and there was never a looking back. It requires courage. You also need to have perseverance as well. There is a lot of hard work that is required. You need to give up on many things because you're following your heart. And if you're following your heart, it never seems work at all. And that's been how I have lived my life every single day. And I have seen that when you give 100% of yourself to your students, to the communities around you, and when they do well, you feel fulfilled. You feel as if their achievements are your achievements. So you need to have a higher purpose, think above self, contribute to community, and you need to invest in yourself. The best investment is in building up your competence. That's something that always stays with you. Having dreams is great, but working towards your dreams with hard work, with perseverance, is also extremely important. And my parting thoughts are that achievements and failures are a part of journey. Success is relative, and success should never just be measured in monetary terms. It's not just about having billions of dollars, a great house, big cars. I think life is a journey, and one needs to think that after we've moved on the journey, what is it that we have given back? And what is the impact that we have created around ourselves? And also, happiness is important. It's not just materialistic acquisitions, but a balanced view. And happiness, the lasting source of happiness, comes in from family, from loving relationships, and there is great value in upholding integrity. We have seen CEOs, we have seen great people, just on account of integrity issues, losing their name, losing all that they have earned in life. So I'd just like to state that there is a need for a higher purpose, need to work towards it, and rise above the opposing forces. Thank you.